I'm hoping that this week's video will cause you to stop in your tracks and really consider everything you've ever believed about yourself. I'm Aliki, transformational coach and YouTuber, creating content to inspire, empower and delight. Now, Manny had asked me if I had heard of Gangaji. Yes, I have heard of Gangaji, and I very much love her book, Diamond in Your Pocket. So today's wisdom quotes are all going to be by this wonderful, wise lady called Gangaji. It is with great honor and joy that I extend to you this invitation, this moment in your life to stop, to retreat from everything you have ever learned, ever, worldly or spiritually, everything you have ever attained, worldly or spiritually. To take 1 second and retreat from it all, and in that, to tell the truth of who you are. At least there will happen one moment where you could directly experience that the truth of who you are is whole and complete as it is. Your body is not whole and complete as it is. It's an imperfect thing. Your concepts of reality are not whole and complete. They're imperfect and limited. Your emotions are also imperfect and limited. Your circumstances are imperfect and limited. Your understanding is imperfect and limited. And all of it always will be imperfect and limited. That's reality right there. Nothing wrong with imperfection, nothing wrong with limits. The task is not to make what's imperfect perfect. The task is to discover what is already perfect and to realize that as the truth of yourself, and to realize that now. Not tomorrow, not next year, not next lifetime, not yesterday, not when you wake up. Now. Only now. Now, the reason she asks us to stop and retreat from everything we think we know is so that we can discover the truth of who we are. Now, I know I talk about this a lot. Discovering your true nature, exposing the ego, the false sense of self, the mind-created identity. There's a lot of that on this channel because we need it. Otherwise, we're going to carry on going through life thinking we're someone we're not. Gangaji says that your true nature is whole and complete as it is. A big stretch for the mind to believe, I know. But listen to what else she has to say. She says, your body's not whole and complete. It's imperfect. I don't think we need Gangaji to tell us that, do we? Your concepts of reality aren't whole and complete. They're imperfect. Your emotions are also imperfect and limited, and your circumstances are imperfect and limited. And your understanding is also imperfect and limited. Now, that's an important one to remember because we rely a lot on our intellectual understanding, and it sends us on wild goose chases, searching for answers to things that we will never actually know. Not in that way, anyway. Intuitively, there's much to know and discover. But intellectually, our understanding is imperfect and limited. And then she says something really amazing. There's nothing wrong with imperfection. There's nothing wrong with limits. The task is not to make what's imperfect perfect. How about that for a self-improvement mantra? The task is not to make what's imperfect perfect. Doesn't stop us trying though, does it? So then what is the task? The task is to discover what's already perfect. Yes! And not only that, to discover what's already perfect, but to realize that as the truth of yourself. This is what it's all about. Recognize the truth of yourself. And the way to do that is to allow all the untruths, all the lies, all the misconceptions that you've been believing about yourself to fall away. Let them dissolve into the abyss of mistaken identity. She says, not tomorrow, not next year, not in another lifetime, but to realize it now. Only now. We get very caught up in our experiences, don't we? And we forget who we truly are. And I'm here to remind you, video after video, with relentless enthusiasm, because I can't think of anything more important, to be honest. You know, I want to thank you for watching this video, because it means that you're taking a few moments to stop and question your reality so that you can remember who you truly are. And I really appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. The world is not as you think it is. You are not who you think you are. I am not who you think me to be. Your thoughts about the world, yourself, and me are based on perceptions. Whether they are inner or outer perceptions, they are limited. Recognize that, and you hear the invitation into the truth of yourself, which cannot be perceived or imagined, and yet permeates everything. When all mental activity around who you think you are or what you need for happiness is stopped, there's a crack in the authority of perception, in the structure of the mind. I invite you to enter through that crack, come in through that opening. When you do, the mind is no longer filled with its latest self-definition. In that moment, there's only silence. And in that silence, it's possible to recognize absolute fulfillment, the truth of who you are. Who you think you are does not have the capacity to realize the truth of who you are. Truth is too big. Who you think you are appears and disappears in the truth of who you are. You have the right to recognize this. Are you willing to recognize that thoughts are simply thoughts, beautiful and horrible in their scope and power, yet inadequate in their description of who you are? Are you willing to investigate this? I'm not against thought. What would be the point of that? Thought is here. Thoughts can be a glorious expression of creativity and understanding. To recognize thought for what it is to be neither for nor against it. But when you're free of the bondage of believing that thoughts are reality, you're free to enter into the direct experience of who you are. Who you are cannot be captured through thought. Your thoughts about the world, yourself, and me are based on perceptions. Can we all agree on this? You have the way that you think, you have your thought filter through which you look at life, and everyone else has theirs. And the reason that we argue is because we are invested in that perception. We believe our thoughts and our view is the right one. And by virtue of that, we make everyone else wrong. This is what the ego loves to do. The ego being the false sense of you, your mistaken identity. Now, there's no blame or shame needed here, not at all. What's needed is an openness in your being to see something new and to be willing to drop the old. You see, awakening from the world of your mind, having an enlightened view of things, doesn't require any special gift or skill or talent. Never believe that. It has to do with being open, open-minded, open-hearted. Gangaji says, when all mental activity around who you think you are or what you need for happiness is stopped, there's a crack in the authority of perception. A crack. This is what we're looking for. A crack. Just a little crack in the authority of your perception. That's what happens when we enter in through that crack. She says, when you do, the mind is no longer filled with its latest self-definition. Hallelujah! The mind is no longer filled with its latest self-definition. I mean, isn't this the freedom that we all want? Not to be limited by this idea of who we are. Let's face it, most of us don't have such a great idea of ourselves, do we? No. I think we can all come up with a list of things I don't like about myself and things I'd like to change. The trouble is that all your awesomeness gets lost in that list. It gets completely overlooked. And you can end up going through life not only feeling less than and not good enough, but being rather grumpy and complaining your way through it. However, if these words of wisdom spark the wisdom within you, and there can be a little crack in that perception, all you need is a little crack for the light to get through. A little bit of light is all you need to conquer a whole load of darkness. There's a silence, a beautiful silence within you when the chatter of the mind ceases to bother you and fades into the background. In that silence, there's a delightful absence of stress. And in that absence, there's absolute fulfillment, a sense of deep contentment and gratitude. Gangaji says, truth is too big. Truth is too big. Who you think you are doesn't have the capacity to realize who you really are. Think about that one. That's why so many spiritual seekers get caught up in trying to awaken, trying to find enlightenment, trying to figure out what it means to be truly present. The thing is, all these things that we're talking about here, when it comes to your true nature, awakening, spirituality, these things have nothing to do with figuring stuff out. If you're trying to figure stuff out, you're in the wrong realm. You're trying to fit the infinite into the finite, the eternal into time. You're trying to fit the spiritual into the psychological. You're trying to fit the truth of who you are into who you think you are. And it won't fit because it's too big. Trust me, it won't fit. Who you truly are, is too magnificent, too vast, too mysterious to fit into anyone's mind and ideas. This is why we need the wisdom within, because wisdom will prevent us from wasting time running around, chasing our tail, trying to fit these deep truths into our intellect. It's a waste of time. Wisdom will remind us that the quiet knowing, the intuitive knowing within our spirit is enough. This is the difference between those who are struggling on this path and those who are simply enjoying it. Gangaji says, to recognize thought for what it is not to be for or against it. Don't be for or against thought. Be like Switzerland. Be neutral. Don't be for or against thought. That's missing the point. The point is to be free of the bondage of believing that your thoughts are true. It always comes back to our relationship with our thoughts, doesn't it? You've taken on the conditioning of parents, cultures, and religions as the reality of yourself, rather than what has always been with you, closer than your heartbeat, closer than any thought, closer than any experience. The truth of who you are is untouched by any concept of who you are, whether ignorant or enlightened, worthless or grand. The truth of who you are is free of it all. You are already free, and all that blocks your realization of that freedom is your attachment to some thought of who you are. This thought doesn't keep you from being the truth of who you are. You already are that. It separates you from the realization of who you are. I invite you to let your attention dive into what has always been here, waiting openly for its own self-realization. Who are you really? Are you some image that appears in your mind? Are you some sensation that appears in your body? Are you some emotion that passes through your mind and body? Are you something that someone else has said you are? Or are you the rebellion against something that someone else has said you are? These are some of the many avenues of misidentification. All these definitions come and go, are born and then die. The truth of who you are does not come and go. It is present before birth, throughout a lifetime, and after death. Allow your mind to stop gathering information, to stop imagining the future, and to stop strategizing for survival. Let your mind simply be held by its source. Recognize that the capacity to open to the truth of your being is always here. Gangaji says, you've taken on the conditioning of parents, cultures, and religions as the reality of yourself. Have you ever considered that? How much of what you think is actually from you anyway? How much of what you think has been passed down and sort of programmed into you over the years from a very young age? We get lost in what others tell us to believe, what others tell us is good and true and the way to live. Quite often we can't even recognize our own voice, our own sense, our own inner wisdom. And now for one of my favorite quotes of all time. You are already free, and all that blocks your realization of that freedom is your attachment to some thought of who you are. You're already free. You're already free. And all that blocks your realization of that freedom is some thought of who you are? No. Your attachment to some thought of who you are. You see, it's okay. It's okay to have thoughts. Make peace with your thoughts. Let your thoughts come and go. Let your thoughts tell you that you're useless and worthless, that there's all these things wrong with you. Let them go on and on and on, because they don't matter. They're not true. They're actually just energy, old energy patterns that keep popping up in your mind. It's your attachment to them that causes the problem. Don't be attached to your thoughts. It's not good for you. Rupert Spira says something really helpful about this. He says, your thoughts are like trains, trains of thought, right? Coming and going. Be like the train station. Let them come and go, but don't get on them. Be like the train station. Don't be attached to your thoughts, right? Let them come and go. Let them harp on and on and on and on and on. They will lose their power over you. They will stop being so intrusive and strong. I promise you, they will. If you stop giving them your attention, if you stop taking them so seriously, if you change your relationship with them. It really is that simple. It really is. What power do intrusive thoughts hold if you don't believe them? And now we have some very important questions to ask ourselves. Gangaji says, who are you really? Are you some image that appears in your mind? We all have an image of ourselves, don't we? How about that cute bat-eared fox in that quote? So cute. Are you some emotion that passes through your mind and body? Are you something that someone else has said you are? Or are you the rebellion against something someone else has said you are? That was me most of my life. The point, as always, is not to get stuck in the story of what happened, but in seeing more clearly, to break free of it all and have a new beginning. A new start in life. Shedding the old skin, the old identity, all those old thoughts and beliefs about who you think you are, and walking in the light of truth, in the recognition of your true being, and in the awareness of your true nature. Because who you and I really are is none of those things. All these definitions come and go. They're born and they die. She says, The truth of who you are is present before birth, throughout a lifetime, and after death. Don't you love that? And you're trying to fit that into thought? There's no way. There's no way. This has nothing to do with believing. You need thought for belief. This has to do with knowing. Deep down, as deep as you can get. You know the truth of who you are. You know. Remember what she said in the beginning. Now, only now. Not next year, not tomorrow. Now. Open to the truth of who you are. Right now. Because you can. As you go about your days this week, remember to stop. Just stop. Question your relationship with your thoughts. Allow yourself to open a little more and come back to the delight of living in absolute fulfillment. You can't go spending the rest of your life. You certainly don't. Oh, there's a squirrel. Wow, is that an almond tree? I need to do another video about that, actually. Big rat just bounced across. That was a big rat.